Good morning. It's Friday, August 30th. And this morning I'm here to talk to you about Jack Smith, the attorney who was working on the case involving the former President Donald Trump and his attempt to overturn the 2020 election. Now, because of a ruling recently in the Supreme Court that Donald Trump managed to put together, Jack Smith has to revise his scenario with respect to Donald Trump's activities in overturning the election. And it deals with the immunity ruling that the Supreme Court has put in place. They have ruled that almost anything the president does is immune to any action that the world wants to take after the fact or before the fact or whenever it happens. And we can blame Mitch McConnell in some regard because he took 8 months to get a justice confirmed after Ruth Bader Ginsburg died. So between Trump and McConnell, we have one of the worst Supreme Court that ever existed in this country. So Jack Smith is now reforming how to attack president's broad immunity because of this Supreme Court. This new indictment is very tricky business because they can't allow it to seem like the old indictment, and they can't even present this to the same people that heard the first indictment. And the revised indictment represents an attempt by the prosecutors in the office of the special counsel, Jack Smith, to preserve the bulk of their case against the former president while bringing the allegations into line with the Supreme Court's ruling that former presidents are immune from criminal prosecution for many official acts while in office. So it's a dicey situation that Jack Smith and his team are up against. And they have to start over from scratch by not allowing anybody that heard former statements to hear these new statements. It's a totally new group that they have put together. So this new document keeps the basic structure of the original document. But the changes was to remove any discussion from this current document of any allegations that might be construed as related to Mr. Trump's official acts as president, while there were other acts that could be interpreted as the conduct of a candidate as opposed to the president. It's very tricky to get that differentiation in action. The new charges was apparent from the first paragraph, where they described Mr. Trump as a candidate for the presidency of the United States in 2020, when the original indictment declared him as the 45th president of the United States and that he was up for re-election. So they're changing the view of what Trump really was all about at that particular time, kind of demoting him, so to speak. So right now, both sides are filing papers with the Judge Chutkan as to how they want to proceed with the trials, etc. And the indictment was also filed in advance of the onset of the so-called 60-day rule, which is an unwritten internal Justice Department practice that calls for avoiding taking overt prosecutorial steps that could influence how people vote within 2 months of an election. So they are going to be very careful about how they put this thing together because they're worried about it affecting the upcoming presidential election. And of course, Donald Trump has cast aspersions on Mr. Smith and his new indictment. You know that Donald cannot keep his mouth shut or keep his fingers out of the pie, so to speak. So this could be a very, very interesting period of time. And we know that Judge Chutkan has been on Donald Trump's side from the beginning, based upon her rulings and her delays. So we keep an eye on this situation. Now, this new 36-page document, or indictment as they call it, has removed by Mr. Smith deputies all the allegations concerning Mr. Trump's attempt to strong-arm the Justice Department into supporting his false claims that the election had been rigged. The initial charging document accused Trump of conspiring with Jeff Clark, a loyalist in the Justice Department, who promised to launch a sham election crime investigation and to influence state legislatures to back Mr. Trump's false claims of election fraud. Then the Supreme Court ruled against that. They found that Trump could not face criminal charges related to his interactions with the Justice Department officials. The court decided the president's dealings with the department were part of the core official duties of his office, and therefore they were immune from prosecution. So you see how our latest Supreme Court is leaning. So while many charges in the indictment were changed somewhat, he still remains charged with exploiting the chaos and the violence that erupted at the building on J6. And Mr. Smith's deputies reframed many of their accusations to comport with the Supreme Court rulings that Mr. Trump and future presidents enjoy the presumption of immunity for many acts undertaken in their role as commander-in-chief. And finally, Smith's team filed the briefing that accompanied the new indictment. And the briefing said that these facts were presented to a new grand jury who had not previously heard evidence in this case. And that move was undertaken in an attempt to keep Mr. Trump's lawyers from claiming that the grand jury had been tainted by hearing testimony that was barred by the Supreme Court's immunity decision. So Smith has done all the correct things to keep this case moving and not leaving an opening that Mr. Trump can sneak through. So I leave you with that this morning. Have a great day. Bye.